Hi, Scott Orlin with CINEMA-Magazine. The new film coming your way is called Penguin Bloom, and I'm here with the star of that movie, Naomi Watts. Naomi, over the course of your career, you've played a lot of real-life people, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you've ever shot in their house.
That is true. Not so regular. Yeah, that was Glendon's idea, the director, who when he went over to have these meetings and talk about their lives and how they managed through the tragedy of this accident, he just got really drawn into this space, the physical space that they had created, and the view was like so beautiful. But what was so interesting is, like, after the accident, it became, such a punishing thing to have to look at, like the horrific reminder of all the things that she'd lost. Her life was so much about outdoor activities and very much water related. So it became haunting. But that's also such a significant piece of the story and her emotional journey to recovery.
Going through an experience like this, how much different appreciation do you have about just the small aspects of your own mobility that maybe we take for granted on a daily basis?
Yeah, we really take it for granted. It became very clear how difficult it was for her, sometimes in watching her physically trying to navigate things. For instance, a lot of the scenes that we shot were transferring from bed to chair or chair to bed. It was very hard no matter how powerful you think your mind is, and say, I need the bottom half of my body, or basically for the bottom 3/4 to just stop, to shut it off, and it doesn't listen. It's there. It's especially when gravity's involved, it's impossible to make that adjustment. And so I found that very difficult. Sam knew that would be difficult, sent me all kinds of videos of her doing that physical activity, and then ended up coming to the set on those days and helping me out and saying, nope, that doesn't work, and try again. And she was very, very much contributing every step of the way with her thinking on these things. But yeah, I also the emotional side of that loss was so important to examine. And she shared her diaries, which was very unusual but very, very valuable. Obviously, I imagined a lot of what was going on in her mind and got glimpses of that from conversation. But once she gave those words to me that were committed to paper in repeated ways daily, it really gave me a proper understanding of the depth of her horrific thinking.
Actors sometimes are called upon to learn new skill sets. I mean, each time they do a performance. And I was just wondering what your relationship to kayaking or boating was prior to this.
Pretty much a zero. I actually I consider myself an athletic person, but I'm pretty agile, but not great with water sports. I actually have a bit of a fear of water, having nearly drowned in Bali, actually, when we were emigrating to Australia, and having come from England, where we're not in the water all the time. You don't grow up in the water like you do in Australia. I didn't know about tides and things, and I just got caught in a riptide with my mum. And so I've always been a bit like, afraid in the water. But I am good with balance, and I think that was what helped me adapt to the kayaking. Sam, while she wasn't impressed with my maneuvering from the bed to the chair, was definitely impressed with the kayaking, she said.
Well, recommendation, never do a movie about a tsunami then, if that's your relationship.
I know, but we like to face our fears. We can't hold on to them and just keep them. We have to,
Well, speaking of fears, I mean, some people get a little nervous around dogs or cats. What is it like to work with a real bird? I mean, I thought for maybe a moment or two that it was animatronic, but those were real birds.
There was animatronics a tiny bit and a little bit of CGI, so minimal. I can't even tell you exactly where it was. But this was definitely a fear of mine, a concern going in. Firstly, how it would work, and how can we get what they're saying on the page? How do we get the bird to emote and communicate? That was the first hurdle in my mind. And then, yes, I hadn't had a great experience with magpies specifically because, we know them to be quite aggressive birds. I had my own experience of riding a horse one day in the forest and getting bombed by multiple magpies because they must have been nesting at the time. And then the person I was with just said, throw your arms up in the air. And I was like, I'm not even an experienced horse rider. I can't throw my arms up in the air. And what if the horse barks? So it was quite a haunting memory I'd had of that connection to magpies. But going in, I'm a bit of a farm girl at heart, so I'm not so spooked easily. And it just took trust and the bird trainer as well. Key thing. He was incredible, really impressive. And turns out the birds are very trainable because they're incredibly intelligent animals.
And is it true that you actually had another animal experience with your kids while making this? They discovered some injured animal or something?
That was later this summer past, actually. Yes, I was out at the beach, and I think it was a crane, a giant bird, came sort of wandering up the road, and it was quite ravaged, like really not long for this world. And it had not only broken its wing, but things were eating it. And Sasha, my eldest, was so, he's such a nature-driven person, just wanted to save it. And it was well beyond saving. We called all the right people and wildlife, and they couldn't do anything. And so Sasha just tried his best to heal it with fish, feeding it, and went and actually fished some fish because it wouldn't eat tuna from the can or sardines.
You lie.
But yeah, that's the thing, is this film hopefully gets us in touch with the simple and pure things in life. And I think we've all had time to pause in this lockdown period and think about the more simple things and reevaluate, and those things can actually drive our thinking in really beautiful ways.
And my last question to you, which I thought was really interesting watching this movie, and especially as a parent, I'd love to get your perspective on this because we see it in the film, and that's childhood guilt. That when a child feels responsible for something that happens, and how a parent has to navigate that to kind of bring them back. And I thought that was such a beautiful aspect of the story.
Yes. Yeah, and we wanted to tread lightly with that because, these, their family is their family, and it's a piece of the story. But yes, Sam addressed it and said, I've missed out on these moments with you, and I've been focused on myself, and now I want to make up for that time. And that was just all about timing. She had to go through what she needed to go through to get to that point. And she did her best to not burden anyone in the family with her thinking. And that's why she took it all out into her diaries, and, sometimes with Cam, but, very much isolated. But in doing so, she did feel regret about not connecting in the ways that she used to with her family. But that's really human, right? It's really human that somebody would go close down after something like that.
Well, I'm feeling guilty because I'm taking too much of your time, and I don't want to do that. Naomi Watts, as always, it is such a pleasure. The film is called Penguin Bloom, and this is Scott. Till next time.
Thanks, Scott.